Welcome to FranchiseWire Live, your source for all things franchising. Remember to subscribe to FranchiseWire Live on YouTube. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And for the latest in news, events, and happenings in franchising, bookmark FranchiseWire.com. Now here's the host of FranchiseWire Live, IFPG President, Red Boswell.
Hey guys, welcome to FranchiseWire Live. Red Boswell, president of IFPG. Did I use the right hand? How many times do I do this? Got it right today. Today's episode of FranchiseWire Live brought to you by Ularity, and Ularity pops up right here. Marketing infrastructure for the internet. How about that for a tagline? Marketing company with all the tools and technology to back up your marketing, especially for franchisors who want to scale it, who want to monitor it, who want to manage it, but still want to get it out there aggressively. So check out Ularity. It starts with EU Larity, ularity.com. We're joined today by the one and only Sam Caucci. Sam is the master of all things at 1Huddle, and I have been a big fan of Sam for a long time. Great videos, great educational content, fascinating information, and these guys are doing something really I don't see anybody else doing. So Sam, welcome to the call today. Excited to learn more about you guys and what trends you're seeing in the marketplace, especially for franchisors.
Thanks, Red.
You got it. You are, hey, I got like 4 layers of clothes on, and I'm in Dallas, Texas. Where are you at?
I'm in Newark, New Jersey, but it's 71 out today. So it's balmy.
And I'm freezing out here and it's 69. Not used to this. Well, help us understand, just put it in perspective. 1Huddle, who are you?
Everything an employee needs to know in a game on their phone. We built a mobile first platform. The whole idea is employees got to know a lot of information. They got to know it pretty quick. But most of the way we train workers is kind of the old fashioned way. We hand them a manual, hope they read it. We, PowerPoint them to death in, live trainings and workshops, or we build, courses and modules and manuals that they got to kind of check their way through. And I'm not dinging all of that. It's all every training program needs to have those pieces. But we feel like today more than ever, workers are on the go. Workers are hyper competitive today. Younger workers are not just play games, but experts at games. There was a research study I came across when I started 1Huddle, said the average millennial will have spent over 10,000 hours on a game before they hit 21. So if you like Malcolm Gladwell and you believe anything he says, then we got to believe that young people are experts at playing games. And, so we just look at ourselves as kind of like that everything you need to know on your hip pocket for workers.
Right on. Combining what people enjoy with what they need. Oftentimes those two don't mix. What a employer wants them to know might bore the heck out of them. You got to make it interesting, make them want to watch it, maybe play it. I got introduced to you guys 2 or 3 years ago at a franchise event, and I just sat back and watched, and I thought, well, that is fascinating. I saw people around me playing it, talking about it, competing on it, learning about the event, and I'm like, dude, I'm all over that. So the next event, because if I'm going to do it, I'm going to win. The next event, I was like, all right, I got there. I jumped right on day one, got in, and this was the big IFA show a couple years ago. I was freaking leading the pack. I'm talking 4,000 plus people. Red Boswell, number one. I'm like, all right, I'm winning that $500 gift card or whatever it was. It was more about bragging rights. And it ended the 3rd or 4th day of IFA, right at the last, at midnight. I am tracking that sucker all the way through. And dude, I still do not know what happened. Super pissed. On my deathbed, I'm still going to be mad at this. Some unknown, some dude that's like first year there comes up from nowhere, inches me out at like minute 11:59 and wins it. And I'm second place, which is first loser. So I know everybody.
I know you're still salty about it. I hear you. You were there. You were right there.
I was right there. Everybody at 1Huddle's heard me gripe about that so many times. They're like, Red, shut up. But anyway, There wasn't even a second place 250, $50, like, hey, bring me on stage. Let me high five somebody. Cause
no
we high
participation
eyes.
trophies at 1Huddle.
But I thought you were all about millennials and the Gen Zers. Come on.
I know. We're trying to change things, Red.
Well, your guys and my guys have been going at it for the last year, and we finally got something together with you, and we loved it. Just earlier this week, so the timing's perfect. We got to experience 1Huddle with IFPG, and we had the big virtual franchise summit. A few hundred folks there, all playing the game, learning. I mean, we wanted them to get hyped about the event, learn about the support team, and learn about each other. And so y'all, and nothing flat, because it was late in the game when we finally got this deal together. Y'all put together 3 different games real fast, and it was a massive success, dude. So I know this ain't a commercial about 1Huddle, but I loved it, and I'm excited to have you on here today.
Yeah, I'm glad it went well. It's I think that the thing I've learned over the years is when the product's in the hands of teams who create competition, who get the most out of their people, they care about that part. They don't just look at education, training, development as a check the box. That's when products like ours do really well. And there's a lot of softwares that you use them because you have to. Our product is definitely one that you good coaches, good leaders, it just multiplies things.
Yeah, it's so hard to keep people trained. Or especially newbies, you want to infuse them into the culture quickly, but heck, I got a job to do here, man. I don't have time for all that. And so having some structure in place around that they're going to fulfill, and I can check to make sure they fulfilled what they needed to do to get to that next level in their employee onboarding has been important to us too.
The idea for me with the product, it came from franchising. I don't know if you even know this, but my last job before starting 1Huddle, I oversaw franchise development for a franchise brand called the Parisi Speed School out of northern New Jersey. We were 50 locations, and I was brought in to do sales. I didn't know anything about what an FDD or an item 19 was. I was a sales guy and believed in the concept. And over the next 2 years, I didn't just get dragged into development. We're small, 50 units. We grew to close to 100. I also got pulled into sales training because all of the fitness centers, which is what we were for kids, speed and agility training, at all of the locations, you're a salesperson. That is so I was brought into the support and operations side to come in and do sales training. And so you talk about training is hard. I started to realize that repeating yourself over and over again, it wears me down. It's like, and that was where I got the idea, man, it would be great if there was a product where you just said it once and everybody remembered it. And that's really where the wheels got spinning around. How do you use a software to make information stickier? And it's no different than the way marketing platforms think about marketing messaging.
Huh. Well, I love marketing, and you're certainly a marketer. I'm a pivot here, and everybody can drink. Yes, I said pivot. How have you gotten on some of these amazing interviews and shows? Besides your just dynamic personality and amazing company, how have you gotten with Mr. Wonderful and so many of these cool exposures, which really is marketing?
Yeah. We've tried to elevate we tried to stay away from talking just about features. And this is now I'm getting into really kind of the sales guts of marketing. We knew that when we started the company that we're obviously a training tool, but that's boring. And we had to elevate the conversation to be around what is the impact of bad training? What is the impact of good training? And so we talk a lot about future of work. For 5 years ago when we started, our first slide in our presentation deck is always something like, 87% of what you learn, you forget. We'll talk about the fact that only 15% of workers wake up every day and say they're excited to go to work. Those are bad. That's a bad couple. And so I would say just starting at the high level of, what, if not us, then who, and talking about how the benefit of better job training creates a world where less turnover happens, more engaged workers happen. A young person that comes out of college has a shot to be able to, get into a role and perform on day one. And that sort of position of selling from meant that when we started doing call it thought leadership stuff and content writing, and as an early startup, I felt like writing or blogging wasn't a good track for us because a lot of our competitors in software, they all do that. And I kind of, one of my marketing sort of cornerstones I talk to our team is, if we can't copy the leader because they have more everything than us. So in the early days, we decided to go a different direction. We did a lot of video early on. We talked a lot about, disconnected workers, what happens. And we took all of the videos we did and we fired them off. So the Mr. Wonderful hit, we were lucky enough to get on Squawk Box. We had sent a bunch of, in that month, we had done a lot of thought leadership internally at 1Huddle on the power of games. And we actually challenged Mr. Wonderful and Aaron Sorkin and the staff on Squawk Box to a game on Squawk Box. And, we got on, and then, we just do that everywhere. We've been lucky enough to get, Wall Street Journal, CNN, we got a bunch of Fox hits because we started talking about, politics. Everybody says, don't talk about politics. We said, well, guess what? They're not doing it. We're going to do it. So we went out and talked about, during the election, who's talking about like workforce development, who's talking about job training. Are we going to give all of our money to private colleges that haven't really done a great job with it? Obviously, maybe there's another place it should go. So we weren't afraid to get into conversations knowing that we're a younger startup. And I'm sure there's a correlation to that with a lot of successful emerging franchisors, right? They're not afraid to, I would say, pick a fight or pick up a conversation that others would say, that's sort of off limits.
It's interesting. I mean, you got thought leadership, you got, let's disseminate it out there everywhere we can. Let's do it differently. And man, you're going to get the exposure, which puts things to your bottom line and get you more exposure. Love it.
Right.
Hey, let's
as an early brand, what did we need? I wanted companies to, when they heard us, when they got that first email from one of our sales reps, whether it was Eddie or Roger, there was already validation, because as a startup in a younger company, what people first say when they see an email from you or your brand is like, where else can I get this? Who is this? How real is it? And if we come in and we already have Mr. Wonderful on something, or we have a Fox News hit or a CNN hit, they'll at least give us, a few minutes before we screw it up.
Yeah. It validates you, just the fact that you're there. Speaking of doing things differently and standing out, man. All right, let's see the ponytail. Give it to us. You got it going on?
No, it's up. It's up today. It's up today.
Strong. I'm jealous.
At some point we'll be able to get back. My wife's been chasing me with scissors for months, but
Yeah, I had the same problem. So help us understand some trends you're seeing in the marketplace. I mean, certainly franchising is what IFPG and FranchiseWire Live is all about, but you don't have to stick with just franchising. What's going on out there? Where should the companies wanting to grow, and certainly are growing, where should they be?
Yeah, I think that I'll talk just maybe some things I think that winning brands right now need to be thinking about. The first is people development. And this is kind of right down the middle for us. Companies that are restarting, companies that are bouncing back after COVID, some that are just opening up with greater velocity. I know that some maybe really never totally shut down, but the reality is we're gonna ramp. We're in like a ramping up into the right motion right now as more people get vaccinated. Companies need to make sure that they have the right infrastructure in place. No different than cities have roads and bridges. Do we have the right software in place to help our workers get from maybe today they're working the front desk, tomorrow they're working as a salesperson, the next day they might be a manager. That those like career pathways are, something that a lot of companies have struggled with pre-COVID. And now because of COVID, a lot of businesses, the jobs have changed. The activities that make them up have shifted a little bit. So, I think the one thing we're seeing is companies start to really think about using software to accelerate onboarding.
Yep.
If I can get an employee ready in 30 days instead of 90 days, there's a revenue impact there. If I do that well, I reduce by 6 to 7 times the likelihood of them churning in the first year, which is not just a financial impact, but I think today more than ever with more Gen Z and millennial workers, which is now 55% of the US workforce, the emotional toll, like a Gen Z worker isn't quitting and then going quietly. Like, I think this is something that doesn't talk, they're going on Glassdoor and they're shredding your brand. The millennial that leaves is not going quietly. And whether you agree or disagree with it, like, it's no different than everybody that hates Yelp. Like, you're going to get the 1-star reviews because of this. And I think that is hopefully motivation. I'm giving a little fear here, but a little motivation to think about making sure our infrastructure is ready for people. The second thing is companies getting a lot more mobile with solutions. Because of COVID being remote, companies started to learn that we need to be able to stay connected with workers wherever they are. So mobile solutions for CRM, for marketing tools, for you're seeing a massive move to text-based marketing, and I'm sure this is stuff you're seeing, like the leveraging SMS a lot more. So those are probably 2 big trends we're seeing is infrastructure so that we can reskill and upskill quickly. Really big in franchising, just to add here, because that frontline worker could be your next Z. So Zors should care about that a lot, and I know there's concern about joint employer and, there's a whole, minefield to navigate here. But if you can navigate it, the Zor has a responsibility to every worker that works for a Z. And I know there's probably some attorneys out there that don't want me to say that, but if you know how to at least motivate them to invest in them, there's big upside on the other side.
Amen. Obviously, you're speaking franchise language there, and the franchisors are nodding. Yes, yeah. I want to be able to provide for the Z and the workers, but how do I do it without going over the line with the government rules and regulations and the ever-changing rules and regulations? So technology can help you with that. Absolutely. Sam, where am I going to see you next? You got any travel out there on the franchise landscape?
We're hopefully going to see you at a bunch of your events you got coming up, right?
Good. Oh, I like that answer, man. Yeah, I wouldn't like throwing that softball to you. So certainly IFE New York City in September. Yep. But we've got, we've got events all over the place too, and our big one, of course, October in Hollywood, Florida.
I'm ready in Hollywood. Yeah, we're excited. I'm from Hollywood, and I'm excited to hit the beach. And you're the first big event on our calendar this year. So I'm not just saying that. So we got, we're excited for October.
Man, you know what? I'm sick. We had this 3-day summit, franchise summit. I mean, I am under the lights. I am on stage, 8 hours, 10 hours a day, 3 days straight. And I'm wired, dude. I'm juiced up. I can't sleep each night. It's all over. You would think everybody else went home like, okay, we're done, gone, see ya. And at midnight on Wednesday, the 3rd day after it's all over, midnight, I'm texting Don, and I got the text over here. I said, dude, we have got to utilize 1Huddle for the retreat like you've never seen before. That is going to be the game changer for us. And he hits me the next morning, of course, not that night, and goes, dude, you're sick. So anyway, we loved what y'all did for us. And again, this is not in any way, they're not paying us for this, guys. I've been excited. I've had this on the calendar for like a month and a half or 2 months to get Sam on here. So it's such cool timing to have him on here today.
Yeah, I think and even with that example, culture, for everybody out there, we have and I'll hold it up, but I can get this to you to share later. We just finished kind of our first big report with Rutgers University, and I'm just going to hold up for a second, but I'll pull it down and explain it, and we can follow this up. But employee turnover in the U.S. before COVID, it's like 28%. It's the worst of any industrialized country top 17 countries in the world. That was pre-COVID, which we could obviously assume it's going to not probably get worse before it maybe gets better. And one of the things we looked at is what's the right pathway to get your workforce on so that they stay with you, they succeed, they generate revenue, they deliver great service. And the one pathway that we found was this one where workers get onboarded in under 90 days, and then they get consistently developed and engaged 52 weeks a year. And this is where it was interesting. There were 3 other pathways, kind of like subway lines that were not positive, then employees turned over quickly. But in the successful one, Red, the develop engagement, the engagement part came down to what we found is employees liking their coworkers, employees connecting personally with their personal mission to the mission of the brand they work for. And that comes down to, not games on, how do you, what's the SOP on opening closing duties? Like those are games, those are trainings, those are modules, those are courses on like getting to know your team. That's stuff on like teamwork and core values and mission and vision. So I thought a really interesting point on that is, as you talked about culture, that is the 21st century skill for big businesses is having a workforce that can empathize and be human with each other and connect with each other and want to play with each other. But if if every day people are coming to work at your, retail store, your restaurant, your brand, and it's all about just like work, you are missing the where this workforce is going. And if you take, when I played sports, this is like the best analogy I use. Coaches used just to say, run through that line, and you never ask why, because they'd kick your ass. So it's like, okay, like that's the drill. Today, if you talk to a lot of coaches with young kids, they say, you got to kind of explain why to the drill now. And if you don't like that, it's okay, but you're probably not going to get everything out of your people. So it's the same. Like, the kids that were getting, the kids that were athletes 10 years ago are now in our workforce. So I love talking to sports coaches, like on our stuff. I love talking to athletic coaches because they tell you what's coming and what's going to happen. And, again, on your point on culture, that's a big one right now.
Yeah, you got engagement all day long. I mean, I think about I have not played some of my Atari video games in 37 years. You give me an Atari video game, Tank Plus or some of those ancient ones that show my age, but literally haven't played in 37 years. I jump on it. I'm number 1 player day one. And that's kind of what you guys do. You make it engaging and memorable, and it sinks in. It's not a chore that you can't wait to get out of, but it's something that makes you proud, makes you it takes that culture to a whole new level, to your soul, and then you want to leave the team. I love it.
It's like, it's like if we call it the power of play. It's just play, and we were wired for play for thousands of years. And, we've only been working in this setting for like 100, it's like when you think about the history of everything. And the thing I always found cool about a game is, like, I was a Techno Bowl guy. So, when you lose, what do? You just play again. And you're upset that you lost, but you're immediate you're competitive. You want to get back into it. That's the polar opposite of how you feel when you go through like an e-learning course and it tells you got a 61%. You suck. Do it again. And I also think about it in the workforce, when an employee screws up maybe in a situation, how can managers use, like, forget our software for a second, but how can you use game mechanics at work when you manage people? Like, how do you turn today into a competition with your people so that when they do screw up, it doesn't feel, it's something that they call it a positive struggle. There's a term in gaming called grinding, and grinding is about like failing over and over and over again until you figure out how to break through that level. And that's the way this generation is wired. They've grinded. And, that's what I always liked about a game is you can fail and it's okay. versus like classrooms, academic stuff, where everything becomes, this test that just leaves people, nobody wants to go to work and feel shitty about themselves.
Yeah. I got 3 Gen Zers that are kids of mine, of course. And the 1Huddle app y'all created, the games you created for our summit this week, I wasn't qualified to participate and to compete. It's a little chapped off about that, frankly. But I walked into my 17-year-old son's room, and he's hooting and hollering like crazy. I'm thinking the dude's having a seizure or something. And of course, he's on a game in his room. I can hear him 100 yards, way down the other side of the house. And it was a little bit of a deja vu when I went in and looked at a screen, and I'm like, "Are you on 1Huddle?" I mean, it was like a game. Of course he was not, but it was cool to have that. Wait a minute. Oh no, you're on Minecraft or whatever he was doing. So it was very real to walk right in and feel that, see that, and sense what I was just on something not too different.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So thank you, man. Final thoughts. I mean, we could go all day on this. This is such a hot topic, and it's where people are going, where companies should be going if they're not already. Any further advice for the Zors, for the business owners out there?
Yeah, I would say that, now more than ever, there's, and I'll talk more about from like a social impact perspective. Obviously, the last year is, I think, proven to us, maybe humbled a lot of us around our business and taught us maybe a little bit more about what's most important to us. I know my 4-year-old daughter, I've obviously never would have been able to spend the amount of time with all the travel schedule you read. I'm sure it's like all the places we normally travel full speed, so I think that is for the franchisors out there that, you work so hard. The last year has taught us a lot, and we've had to probably iterate and change and work really rapidly. This is what I would say. Employees want to work with brands that have a purpose, and that purpose can't just be a social impact statement on your website. It can't just be you can't just do Black History, diversity, equity, inclusion work in February and think you're doing it right. It's got to be, I think the thing I'll say is that the work you do has got to be 52 weeks a year. As a coach to a coach, if you want to develop your people, develop your business, and be unstoppable, you have to develop your people. Every day is game day. It's got to be continuous. It's got to be every day. And in doing that, just be confident in knowing that your workers want it. I'm on more calls today than ever with like policy people and educators talking about, a generation of young people who are upset that they're not getting as many educational skill opportunities and so on. And the way, there's a lot to unpack there, but this is what I would say. If you got a generation that's saying they're raising their hand and they're thirsty to get better, as leaders, let's do it. And if they don't take advantage of it, maybe they shouldn't be with you. But if we to check our box, we should make sure we're offering every worker, regardless of the college they went to, their background, what role they are. Roger on our team tells a really cool story about Lowe's Hotels. Lowe's Hotels had a bartender named Kim at one of their properties. Kim had access to our platform and started playing games on catering for catering sales. And a few months later, I'm on the phone with the head of operations for Lowe's, and we're rapping about who they're, how the platform is effective and this, that, and the other. And I pull a data report and I say, to the operations person, I go, "Do you know who your best catering manager is in all of your properties everywhere? Do you know who it is?" She's like, "Yeah, I could probably figure that out." I go, "How surprised would you be to know it's Kim, the bartender, in one of your who has played more games on catering sales and beat the crap out of everybody else in your company on the material. But now that you've seen that, you can go tap Kim on the shoulder and say, you know what? I know where we're going to take you next." Instead of opening up a job search and spending God knows how much time, money, and energy looking for your next catering manager, looking for your next Z, how much money do we spend looking for our next Z? How much money do our Z spend looking for their next manager? They're right here. Use technology to give them the opportunity equally to level up. And I tie that to social impact, because we know that, you know, some of the frontline heroes during COVID are the people that we should, the way we thank them as we get back to normal is by offering them advancement opportunities. And the only way to do that is by, you know, turning stuff on for them.
And by turning stuff on for them, it allows you to see who wants to raise their head above the masses. How else were you going to do that? Especially when you're multi-location and there's no way to really track it and see who cares, who is engaged, and who, heck, scores well on the games too. Right on.
Yeah. So let them compete. You know, if they don't, that's a different point. But if you're not even letting everybody have an opportunity, then I think you're just missing a lot of an untapped opportunity that's right under your nose.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen, brother. Sam Caucci with 1Huddle, Red Basel with IFPG on FranchiseWire Live. Thanks again to Eularity for making all this possible. See you on the road, guys, real soon, and especially you, Sam. Thank you, brother.
Thanks, Red.